with a, no? Waiting on technology now. Please be patient. All right, now we're good. All right, please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in memory of Ronnie Newman and for his family and friends. Ronnie was a dedicated public servant to the town of Richmond. He worked hard with everyone to better our community while remembering not to take life too seriously through his jokes and his pranks. May he rest in peace. Thank you. All right, for anybody watching on Zoom, when we get to the 6 p.m. meeting, you will need to log off and log back on. There's another Zoom call or another Zoom link there. So we are on our workshop part 2, and Danielle had sent us, and it's available on Clerkspace, a spreadsheet with all of our updates. I was thinking we'd start there just to make sure that all the updates look clear based on our discussions. I noticed one thing I wanted clarity on, but I'll yield to other council members if anybody else wants to start. All right. One thing I noticed was the animal control department. I believe it was like just miscellaneous supplies. Line number 1215203. It's at 3,500 now, and I couldn't remember where we landed with reducing it, because we had discussed reducing it, but also that she's new to the position. So I wanted to revisit that with council and see what you guys thought, because it's at 3,500. She's not using it every year. And I thought maybe we could reduce it down to 1,000 and she could use whatever needed through the end of the year as a new position to get new desk, new whatever is needed. What are thoughts on that?
If I recall, that was one of our parking lot questions. You were gonna see if we had time to reach out to her and
Okay.
see what she thought. Did we have any feedback from Officer Briodi?
I can speak on her behalf.
That'd be great.
Normally, barring some project we have, it's usually around $2,500, which I think it was adopted in FY '24. Between August of '23 and until recently this year, the full-time position was vacant and part-time employees were handling that operation very well, but on their part-time hours. So now that it's a full-time employee again, where you see actuals spent or not spent, very misleading if you look at the previous year or the previous 12 months. I think 2,500 or reducing that by 1,000 from the request would be more than sufficient to run that operation in FY '26.
Okay, reduce it to 2,500.
Yes, bring it down $1,000.
Okay. Okay.
What, we started at 2,500.
But it was 3,500.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Am I looking at the right one?
I think so. I just wrote that at the top at my notes.
Department 21. So it's not on that.
Oh, okay. Then I'm looking at the wrong line. Okay. No, no, I believe.
It's under 01215203.
Yep, that's fine.
It was not included on the notes, so I hand wrote it in. Sorry, I didn't have a page. Yes. 18. Okay, so we're agreed to reduce that 1,000.
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
All right,
Yeah.
sounds good. Where do we want to go next? Do we want to go to DPW or continue to hear from Chief? What do you guys think?
Sure.
All right, sure. Chief Johnson, sorry.
Yes.
We asked you to come, I believe, for the public safety overtime and the part-time dispatch overtime. I think there were some questions on that. Were you?
You want me to go to the podium?
Yeah, sure, just for the microphone. I don't know
Yeah,
if it hears
Absolutely.
well from the seats.
First off, I had a long scheduled doctor's appointment for that last one. I appreciate you letting me go to that. My doctor was happy to see me. Healthy, it's all good.
Good.
But I got to watch the meeting back and I heard some of the questions you had. When we proposed this budget, it's early December. So we have a much better idea we are fiscally and what we're gonna need for the upcoming year. So I think there are some suggestions I have right off the bat. The contract negotiations that we currently have, that $8,000 hasn't been spent yet, but it's because the negotiations are going on right now. They're going well. I don't anticipate we're gonna need collective bargaining into FY 26, but with that said, we have had minuscule expenditures under $1,000 in past years for various reasons. So I think you can reduce that by, I think you already reduced it
I think we did too.
by what, $3,000 or 5,000? So you can bring it down another 2,000 to 1,000 for FY 26. So that brings the total from the original ask down from 8,000 to 1,000. So it's a reduction of 7,000 from the proposed.
Okay.
Is that under legal? Is that where that,
Yeah, that was the
Yes.
legal.
that's the,
It's 01605400.
That one is on our mini
Yes.
update.
I had your sheet, but now it's in a pile of other papers. Not that.
Sorry, go ahead, Erin.
Just for the public's benefit, can we hit a page number? Yeah. Just because I'm screen sharing. Okay.
Oh.
page.
Nope, I'm way far back. Oh, this one does not go in order.
Oh, public safety.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. It's around 17.
Well, it's 17 of the PDF, 15 of the budget.
Yeah.
Because you've got
It does.
2 pages
Yeah.
of notes
It
before the
does.
budget, that's why it's.
All right.
So just so we're all on the same page, we're bringing that line from 8 to what?
1,000.
$1,000.
Okay. So go down another 2,000.
Right.
Police overtime. So part of the reasons of requesting prior authority to have a cops hiring grant to add one additional officer was to help cover this and reduce overtime. And in looking at our actuals over the last, since 2018, you can see where that impact was made. In 2018, our actuals on overtime with just 13 officers, not including me. $261,997 in overtime. The next year it went up a little, $274,708. We had, during that time, we did have a long-term IOD, so it impacted, it was actually took 13 down to 12. But if you look at the actual in 2020, before we hired anybody, and we had pretty much full staff, we were down to 201,917 in actual. We hired that officer 2021 to 2022. And after they cleared FTO and were on patrol, our actual in 22 was 165,828 with 14 officers. In 2023, it was 154,562. So it had the desired impact to bring it down despite increases in pay. In 2024, we were down to 160,866 with 14 officers. This year has been beyond challenging because of the death of our officer back in September. So we've been not paying that full time, but the fact is we've had to cover that absence. And then we lost an officer to Newport lateral for better paying benefits. We currently have a recruit in the academy. We're at 126,000 right now in overtime. I think based on our forecasting, we're going to come in under 182, probably under 180. Based on that, and with the hire in the academy, he should be on the road within a couple of months of FY 26. I'm proposing we reduce the request from 200,000 in overtime to 185 and bringing that down 15,000. My goal is to come in under that next year, and then we can kind of revisit what we ask for next year.
Okay.
But that's a reduction to 15. comfortable with that. It's conservative, but this is kind of going into uncharted territory. We still have to hire another officer just to bring us up to full complement.
So Chief, just kind of on that,
Yeah,
so right now we have 14 sworn officers, including the officer in the academy.
no, so this is, it's always confusing to people. We are approved for 15. I'm a
Right.
sworn police officer, but as the chief.
Mhm.
So shift coverage is based on your other personnel. And that's, we're approved for 14 officers plus myself, 15 sworn.
Right.
We're actually down 2 bodies in patrol right now because the recruit's in the academy with another 8 weeks to go. So he doesn't, even though he is currently a member of the department, he isn't filling any shifts.
Right.
And he has to complete probation, he has to complete FTO. And then we still have to hire another officer to bring us to full complement with 14 plus myself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so let me just make sure I
Yes.
understand what you just said. So once the officer comes out of the academy, gets on the road, we'll be at 13 plus you.
Correct.
So we have one more slot we're trying to fill to get to the full complement of
Correct.
14.
Awesome.
So do the wage numbers that we have in the budget account for hiring another officer? Or we have, it looks like it does. It says sworn officers 14 and the chief. So I just want to make sure we're accounting for the hope that we're going to have someone else that we'll be hiring during the year.
When we proposed the budget, we actually were just about to lose that officer to new at a top step corporal position. So you're hiring, I mean, it's not advantageous to hire new people, train them and lose them. But it's at a lower rate of pay.
Yeah.
As a frontline
But
officer.
no, but I just want to make sure we've got,
I
you
understand.
put it, you put
100%.
in here, understanding that you're gonna, fingers crossed,
Yes,
that you get somebody and you've got enough in the budget to pay that person once they come on board.
fingers crossed.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. All right, good.
Next thing I just wanted to touch on, operating budget lines. So outside of personnel expenses, our operating budget for fuel, cruiser maintenance, supplies, office supplies, small equipment, which we normally do. We level funded across the board, but for 2 lines. I just wanted to point that out. The only 2 lines that increased were fuel, which was kind of the anomaly in last year's over expenditure and kind of beyond our control. That's 01615300. So we had to add 7,000 to this year's budget to try to anticipate the increase for the upcoming year. And then the other increase was travel, which is our police clerk who uses her personal vehicle to run documents back and forth through town to the post office. $100 increase. That's the only thing that we ask for increases in our operating expenses. And then I can go to the dispatch part-time wages if you're ready to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So under dispatch 01.62.5001. I spoke to the chiefs in West Greenwich and Hopkinton, and this was, it's hard to retain people when you can't pay what your neighbors pay. And when as dispatchers, you start with 0 vacation days in your first year, and you're encountering stressors that the average employee in any operation isn't encountering. Emergency calls. They have 4 full-time in West Greenwich. They have 4 full-time in Hopkinton. We have 3. They don't deal with police officers having to work overtime on the desk, which is much more expensive at their rate of pay. They also don't have to have a full staff of part-time employees covering 48 hours a week in shifts. It becomes more efficient if you have 4 full-time. And for instance, in 2024, when I was proposing the 4th full-time, I looked at what portion of our overtime budget for police officers was dedicated to dispatch. And it was about $38,000 change in 1 calendar year. When we couldn't fill it because we didn't have a person to fill that vacancy. And you're looking at the lines, and I know, look at the details in the lines. You got to remember that some expenses are offset by other lines.
Mhm.
For instance, we have a dispatcher who's in the military. She's a Navy. And she was gone for about a year and 3 or 4 months. So we're down to 2 full-time dispatchers, but we have to cover the phones and the radio for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That led to expenses in police overtime, part-time people working more hours than normal anticipated. But the military covered her salary when she was gone. So you're not expending her salary item in that same budget year, but you are in other areas. I'd much rather have stable operation with 4 full-time dispatchers that are scheduled for a known schedule, and it's easier to fill here and there with a part-time employee. Or, worst case scenario, like we had COVID, where 6 members of our police department went out at the same time in 2020. The ability to kind of adapt, overcome, and manage your operation. So I am requesting that 4th dispatcher, but we're not going to need the part-time wage that we requested. If we can actually find a 4th full-time dispatcher who's willing to work for 0 vacation days that first year, it can be offset with comp and things like that. But so the request is, instead of 45,208, I propose reducing that by 10,208 down to $35,000. We may even, if we're successful in hiring a 4th full-time dispatcher, if it's approved, I think we could come in under that, but I don't want to be so bold as to plan on it like it's happened and it's worked without.
Yeah.
I think it's a reasonable adjustment to bring that down. So that reduction of basically it's $27,000 from where you were at the last week's meeting.
Yeah, that's great.
So
Oh my
what's I'm sorry, what's the request now for part-time?
Part-time wages under that, the last 4 numbers are 5001.
Yeah, I've got the line. I just forgot
Okay,
the figure.
35,000.
But I thought it's the one.
So it's minus 10,000 in the $208.
Yep.
That's awesome. Thank you. What do you got?
You're welcome.
And I guess along those same lines, and this was the other question I had. You just answered the first one about can we reduce the part-time if we get a 4th full-time? Would we also hope to see a reduction in the overtime number, or is that not necessarily?
I do. I think we'll see it, but just based on our actuals over the last 4 or 5 years, I'm uncomfortable moving that until I know that we've actually got hires in place.
Yeah.
I mean, if we don't spend it, we don't keep it, it goes back into the
Right.
general fund. But I think the part-time wages definitely will come down. And I anticipate the overtime will as well. I just am a little hesitant to make huge changes when we don't actually have those hires in place yet. The budget hasn't been voted on yet.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. I just, yeah. wanted to
I'm
cover
hopeful that similar to what we did with the hiring of that police officer in 21, 22, it impacted our overtime for police. I'm hopeful that you'll see those same impacts if we have a more efficient team of 4 full-time dispatchers at dispatch than spending here and there to try to fill that spot that could easily be filled by a full-time employee.
Right.
Who's a civilian.
That makes sense. Did we have other questions for you? I don't remember now.
I don't know.
I don't think we did.
It's in regard to the capital improvement plans. I don't know if you want to go through that after or ask Chief while he's standing here.
Well, you're hanging around till 6 anyway, right?
I'm here for the duration. I think I'm here until the lights go out, so.
Yeah.
We can get to that afterwards.
Okay.
If he's okay, he can sit down and take a break.
You want a break? Or you want to go? to
I'll do
capital
whatever you
improvement?
want to do.
All right, let's go to the capital improvement. Let's get it done while you're up there.
Okay.
So which page of the capital improvement are we looking at?
So page 21 has to do with vehicle replacement. And it looks like we're going to allocate $48,000 from our capital improvement funding this year. And it looks like we're going to expend $73,000 this year. That's anticipated expenditures. So it looks like we're gonna have some additional left over from that. Can you just explain to me, because it's coming from a complete position of ignorance about, so we purchase new vehicles 3 vehicles every 2 years. Is that fairly standard?
No, so let me explain this. When I first arrived here in 2010, we had a very dated fleet. And we didn't have, most of the cruisers, if I recall correctly, didn't have push bumpers. But that was because they were trying to build the department up. My predecessor was very frugal, but smart and wanted to build this thing into professional, full-time police department, which he did. But we were playing catch-up in all areas, including personnel, pay, benefits, but also equipment. So we had cars with 195,000 miles on them that were frontline cars. So the goal was to try to replenish the fleet by doing 2 cars a year, which we did for about 1 or 2 years, 3 years maybe. And then there was a push at it was a budget workshop. And there was one group that came in with a lot of concerns, and there was some information that wasn't 100% accurate. It had been run by, this is not to dismiss or disparage anybody. It's just what happened. There was some confusion over what the town's budget was, what the school budget was going to be. And it led to a conversation with council and the public where they were trying to make some changes, maybe some reductions. So at that time, I had arrived from a swearing in Burrillville in the midst of this whole thing. And I think it was Councilman Reddish at the time. I think he was the president or vice president. And he said, Chief, instead of 2 cars budget cycle, what about a car and a half? I'm thinking, well, I don't know how you're going to drive a half a car around. But the concept was,
Yeah.
it actually worked. It was good. It was a car and a half. So we roughly estimated to be about $60,000 to upfit buying a cruiser is one thing. Upfitting it with police equipment, lights, radio, a prisoner cell, push bumper, emergency equipment, it was $40,000. This is, 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
And they don't make LTDs anymore. Those were by far the best police car they ever made. I mean, they were comfortable. The only thing is 2 inches of snow and you were completely useless. Yeah. Right? Because they're light in the back end and they had a hard time holding the road. If they ever made an all-wheel drive in that model, it would have been like $1 million seller. But costs of cars have gone up. They discontinued that line. Cruisers now, we've moved to the Dodge Durango, all-wheel drive Pursuit, which is an excellent car. But like the Chargers were good for a while, but the 8-cylinder all-wheel drive, not a great model, engine problems. And they're expensive, those engine problems. So long and the short of it is cruisers now to upfit from start to finish, buy the car and upfit them, it's just a little under 60,000. So instead of a car and a half now, we're at a car budget cycle. So I think this is what Danielle, when I saw those numbers, it kind of refreshed my memory. I believe we discussed what a car and a half actually was. And the proposal was to try to bring the fleet up so that we don't, newer cars don't require as much maintenance. You have an older fleet, you're not buying new cars, but now you're spending money on maintenance.
Mhm.
And it always looks bad when your police cruiser's on the back of a tow truck.
Yeah.
Can't really go to calls that way.
They need to be
Step
reliable.
up.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that explains it in entirety, Dan,
A
but
little bit. So is this gonna be a cycle of replacing all the cars again, or we just continually making sure we have?
we're trying to keep the entire fleet running. So
Okay.
if you look at our detail cars, a lot of them are frontline cars that have been moved to the back of the parking lot to be stationary on details. They earn revenue for the town. They also earn revenue to replenish some of the cruisers. It's a portion once we hit the mark that I think Laura Kenyon had established a couple of years ago. But they do generate revenue from, third-party vendors, tree companies, Rhode Island DOT, Verizon, and the rate I believe is $35 an hour, but it adds up. It's over $40,000, $50,000 a year on good detail years. So we're trying to keep, you can't have a detail car that you tow out and leave there with the lights on. It doesn't actually run. It's got to be able to run. And that's what we're looking to do, is trying to get the fleet so that we have continuity and we're not dumping a ton of money into older cars.
Makes sense. Did you have another question?
No, that's it. I just wanted an explanation of
Yeah.
how this was set up, because this is a continual project that we fund, and I just wanted to understand the details behind it.
So the brilliance in it is Danielle, she's the finance expert. I just told her what a cruiser costs now, and we're trying to forecast and predict for the future and make sure that we don't fall short on reliable cars for patrol.
I mean, this is where I see this type of funding, it's where I see a grant writer becoming very influential, because when I've looked at other municipalities, they've gotten a lot of grants to upgrade their fleets and other equipment, and we haven't been able to take advantage of that. And so, let's say, for instance, the town approved $60,000 for a grant writer, we hire someone, we spend it. I think we're gonna get more than that in, obviously depending on what happens with the federal government, but I've seen other municipalities in Rhode Island have gotten a ton of funding And it could cover a lot of these capital improvement initiatives. So I think it's gonna be beneficial.
I hope so. There's just, you know, in a smaller department, I came from the state police and there were people to delegate to, and sometimes you were the person that was delegated to. But you didn't have your hands covering as many leaks and issues that have, you're wearing, in a small town like this, you're wearing 4 or 5 hats, literally. I could be unclogging a toilet tomorrow. I don't know. I mean, I'll do it. I know how to do it. I'm an expert at it, both at home and work, but
Take house calls?
I will if it's like a flooding situation. No, it's just, we don't say it enough, what the employees in this town, what they do with what they're provided with is pretty remarkable. So, I hope that the grant writer has time to dedicate to writing grants and they can just searching grants. I mean, I know there's grants out there that I just don't have the time to look for or manage it that.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful as well.
All right, so any other questions for Chief? We only have an hour today. Awesome, thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
All right. Gary, I think you're gonna be up then.
Okay.
So we also had questions for the DPW, and that department. They are, I'll have to look up the department number and then go to it. Nope, sorry. Department 19, which I don't know what page that is. I'm gonna try to find it.
14 was.
All right. So we're on 14-ish. Yeah, okay. So I had highlighted from our questions, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, that it was regarding equipment maintenance and parts. That was one item we were discussing reducing. But does anybody else remember more specific? That one I thought got answered. Yeah, but if you have a question, you wanna go for it?
No, I just had it highlighted with a question.
Oh.
I have a question.
Yeah, sure, go ahead, Jeff.
Considering the last 2 years were kind of light with snow,
Yep.
you know, you still spend the same allotted money because you don't want to get caught in a situation, obviously, right? So you would have, especially the salt, wouldn't you have an overabundance, I guess you could say? Because of the light winter that we had the 2 years,
Yep.
and then this year, so. That was really my question, is that if we have that amount of money for salt and gravel, but that was obvious, was brought to your attention that if you don't use the salt money, go to trees, right?
It could, like I said, we've been fortunate the past few years. You don't want to take a chance of taking that away, but I thought that was a good idea. Last year, being just starting this, I was so conscious of Laura Kenyon. Gary, all you do, don't go above that number right there. So I was so cautious watching that. Then I realized I left a little much and I said, geez, I could have got something that I should have got. It's a learning curve, but at least I know what I'm looking for now, but I wouldn't, you know, we get a couple good storms down the road or something, we'll go right through that.
Yeah.
You want to keep that, we don't want to go backwards either way. Old Kenny Hill Trail, we're putting chipstone in, running them through and do the back and ice roads, back to straight sand up a real light mix, you know, it's like, we've come a long way. I don't want to go back into that now, it took a long time to get there.
No, yeah.
But I understand that's a good idea. Tree work, we still got so much tree work. In the budget's, I think, 35,000 for the year. That gives us 10 days and they may get one more day. So that's what, 375 at 8 hours. So don't go far.
Yeah.
So
We
you get
can
about,
keep going, we can keep going, and we still got a lot of stuff.
yeah, no, I know the trees are, they're ridiculous. Plus with
What
the
they've
wind
done
and
since
everything.
2018 is
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering,
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Get past this season, like right now. Get to, you never know what happens in April either, but that's turn around, put it right back to that. That'd be a good idea.
okay.
All right. Did anybody else have any questions for you? Sure, go ahead, Dan.
I have a couple if you don't mind. Would there be any benefits? It's kind of a two-part question. One, putting in our capital improvement plan, purchasing a bucket truck to help with tree maintenance, or two, do we have the ability to borrow a bucket truck? And would you have, if we did that, would you have the ability to actually use it?
Second question, yes, we get help once in a while, but you can't take away what they're doing either. You can't depend on them. Or you need it for 2 weeks or something like that. You can't, I wouldn't feel comfortable putting them in. We get a lot of help. We do a lot of back and forth with towns. But, I mean, you always can ask. But there's some stuff that really professionals you need. All the wires, the bucket truck, these guys, some of these guys won't even go near the wires. So, but like you get Northeastern, them guys professional, they actually, Pinehurst, they actually climb because the bucket trucks couldn't reach. So, and I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
If it would be worthwhile to look into purchasing a bucket truck, would there be any long-term benefit of doing that? Do you think the town would save money, long-term?
I really don't think so.
Okay.
It's pretty expensive, the insurance alone, something like that, then all licenses back. So, to us, and only what, 9 guys, 10 guys that actually go out and do that stuff. I mean, everybody participates, we got the chipper in that. And what we did just do with Narragansett, we traded off with them. And they went, did all the trimming on like, Joe and a few other places, got all the high stuff, and we took the trim behind them. We let them borrow the truck because they have to take their salt and sand and all, they sweep up and they have to take that to the landfill. They got the small truck, so they borrowed a truck from us for a week, and they came back down with a bucket truck and a guy, he did all the cutting, so it works out real well. Just like Hopkinton, they ran short, they had problems with their standards last year, one of the trucks. So we let Dave borrow it in return, and they let us borrow the pavement. So it works real good that way. But for us, we're only that many guys. Getting licensed, I don't think we can't keep up with everything we got now.
Okay.
It's really a lot out there.
Yeah.
I've got some additional questions about paving, but if we're still talking about tree maintenance or removal, I want to make sure everyone gets a chance. Mark's got something.
I just want to ask, just so I understand, just getting back to snow removal for a second, Gary.
Yeah.
On this line, because it's just one line, snow removal,
Yep.
does that include sand and salt?
Yes,
Um,
that's ordering from you line, the big buckets, the pails, buckets, the 40 skids,
yep,
the cab for here, PD. And where else needed, we keep all the sand.
what else is on that line other than that? Is that pretty much it? It's basically the material?
That's pretty much it. Yeah, the material.
Because the drivers, obviously, that comes out of the wage line
Yep.
and overtime if there is.
So that's-
And the truck maintenance comes out of the
That,
normal.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's pretty much what it is, the salt and sand and the ice melt.
Okay.
There's not a lot more that comes out of that.
All right, okay, thanks. That's all I have.
Got your other question, Dan?
Yes. It's kind of a multi-part question, so we'll start with the first one. In the list of roads to be repaved, we set it up so that we're paving entire roads. Do you think it would be beneficial to put together a list of some sections of roads that are the worst in the community, like collector roads that a lot of people drive on, and potentially spend some money to fix the really bad sections instead of repaving the entire road? Do you think we could do that? And is
There
there a
are-
benefit to doing that?
Yes, there are some spots. Actually, we just did. It was just an overlay, but just a good spot. Cherry Lane stop. I mean, that's another road that needs done.
Hmm.
KG Ranch. I mean, but there are spots we could really go around and do some overlay. If it works out, Exeter or Hopkins lets us use their paver, we can do that.
All right, that was my second question, because Exeter does something that I haven't seen Richmond do, where they kind of like, if there's a really bad section, they fill it in, they mill it, they flatten it out, then they put down some kind of tar or oil, then they stone it, then they put another layer of tar and oil, then they stone it.
Yeah, they're having that. It's another name
Is
for
it
it. There's
chip
rubber
seal?
chip. It's chip sealing. Like Wilbur Hill, that's how that was done. They called that a 3-stage. And that was just a gravel road, and that's what they call it. Now it's different. They got some rubberizing. And Steve was the director of Exeter. He is running a company now too. Well, not running, but working for him. And they do this fog seam. And if you go up by, it comes out beautiful. It looks like it was paved, and it holds color and it fades like that. The tower up on Route 3, what's that road, Daniels? Do you know what road that is?
Is it,
Dolly Park.
No, the fire station up on Route 3.
is it,
Oh,
In Exeter?
In
Yeah.
that,
one
Take that
65?
somewhere up there. Yeah. and
Is it 10 Rod Road?
Sure, I think it's right after the fire station.
Is
right
it where they
there.
put the light up recently?
I'm not sure.
Or is it
I've been going to mean to look at it and I saw the pictures and they did a place over by my son's place in North Stonington. It come out beautiful. You think they paved it, but it's a real light chip. And they run it right over back with a tar and it comes out, it's smooth. It's really nice.
Mm.
And I was gonna talk to us about that one time because some of these, we really don't have to repave, but it is good to get some of these old roads that are already gone to just salt, sand. Gravel, oil, sand. It's time to they gotta go eventually, get a base, then you can work with them after, like, there's some good roads that have been paved already that we should be putting a film over, just to have it, for it doesn't just go away. And this, a lot of places, but doing a road with that stuff, if you get a good road and you gotta do it, it's third of the price of asphalt.
Yeah, so
So
the
it's
reason,
something to really look into it. And this is, some of these are new and I gotta look into it more myself, but Steve's got good information on it. So there's ways to cut, it's just people wanna do.
well, I would welcome your ideas. These sound like great ideas. And I think just the way that I'm looking at this budget, I think we have some opportunities here. We can, depending on which way the town wants to go, we can either return some money to taxpayers by cutting the mill rate, or we can take that money and put it into our infrastructure, i.e. roads. And I did an informal poll. I was at Cub Scout camping this weekend and it's various demographics of people that live around town. And I asked them, I said, would you rather save $70 to $150 in taxes per year? Would you rather have your roads repaved? And they said, I'd rather have my roads repaved. And then the next question was, well, which ones get repaved?
Yeah.
And so we had some discussions about, okay, so Wilbur Hill Road, there are some other developments that would like to have their roads repaved, but maybe not all of them need to be repaved. And we have some areas like Old Mountain Road, the Collector Road, you've got Pine Hill Road's got some sections. Maybe we can pinpoint and target certain roads that are really bad and spend our money strategically so we can fix these bad roads and then keep investing in ourselves and be able to fix these other areas as we go. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. And I think you're telling me what I want to hear, which is good. We had the
I
opportunity
can
to
help
do it.
know it, but I'm, like for Wilbur Hill, I wouldn't even waste your time trying to do any kind of chip sealing. It's so old and gone. And that is just, and then somebody says, well, why don't we just do Wilbur Hill the straightaway. And they're gonna come back, they gotta tie and key in again to do Deer Run and Small Pond. You're getting away from the whole thing, it's not, that's just gotta be done. That's never had
Yeah.
a base under it, nothing. There's a lot. Old Mountain's another one that's getting real bad. And that's a main route out in this town. And that's only chip seal, a chip stone and seal in the beginning all the way. And the new going down to the S-turns, down to the pond, that little bit, that's just an overlay when that flood washed out in 2010. That whole road eventually is gonna have to, and after that, they hit the other corner and head up to Hillsdale. That's the same thing. That's so terrible.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's bad.
I mean, I feel bad as a representative here for the town to say, all right, well, we've got major roads that definitely need work, and to say, okay, you got a development, you maybe see 50 to 100 cars a day. This road here is seeing 2,000. And I'm sorry, but you're gonna have to wait a couple years. And I'm just thinking, if there's a way that we can strategically update our roads, maybe we can help everyone out at the same time. Maybe that's just wishful thinking.
And like I said, it's just like an in-house list I got. And they've been doing that whenever. It's just something they switch up and down. It's just something, it's nothing like, it's just something for me to remember. This is bad, that's bad. And you can sit here and ask 10 people, pick the first 5 roads you can think of. Everybody will have the same ones. It's not a written thing. It's just if somebody asks, yeah, that is that bad. So I put it, but there's no, no particular order or nothing like that.
Would it,
That list is really helpful just to be able to tell constituents, yes, they're aware. Like maybe funding can't happen now, but yes, they're aware. So that list that's
And once they see it,
been
and
sent
you
into
make that a public issue. Automatically, now that we're in the top 10, we're gonna be sold. It's not, and
who knows
that
what'll happen
changes.
next?
it all depends. Hey, Wilbur Hill. They're 7,700 feet. Say you end up getting a budget, that's what happened on another road. Say you only get a budget for, say, 400 feet. That's what Wilbur Hill ain't gonna get done unless they come up with, that's how it works. I mean, you can't, I feel bad. I told a few people, yeah, hopefully you're next, you're on the list for the very next one.
would it be possible, maybe this requires a
But you gotta be
motion
capitalized,
from the council,
you're
but
next.
I'd like to be able to have, I guess, a more detailed discussion about this and the various options we have at one of the public hearings, so we can explain what, we can work through it and decide as a council how much money we want to put into infrastructure improvements. I don't know if that's something that you're willing to do for us on a short notice. I don't know if we need a motion.
What are you asking for? I don't,
Basically for Gary to provide us with options for repaving and then
specific roads?
some of the worst roads that he thinks
Mhm.
need to be repaved and what we can do to spread out the wealth around the town.
Yeah,
So we
I-
can target strategically.
I think the best thing to do from the budget standpoint, high level, is to determine how much we can afford to put towards this. And then have it be a discussion point, like we strategically pick which roads based on what we can afford. And if we have a little too much, then we save it for later. If we have just enough, that's perfect. If we have enough for half a road, then we continue to save year after year.
Well, that's where I
Um,
think it's gonna be tough because we're gonna have to balance.
Right.
Because if you look at what Danielle provided us for this meeting, there's an opportunity to reduce the mill rate.
Yeah.
Or we keep the mill rate the same, everyone's taxes stay constant, as long as their home value didn't change. And we take that difference, which is what Mark suggested at the last meeting, which is the fund balance reduction, and you put that back into infrastructure improvements.
Right.
And so that was the kind of question I posed at the camping trip is, what would you rather have? And everyone said, I'd rather have better infrastructure. It's anecdotal. I don't have any proof. I don't have anything written and sworn, but
Gotcha.
that was 10 different parents.
And I will mention, like, coming to one road, I'll say, I know, everybody knows, KG Ranch is so.
Yeah.
But you gotta keep in mind, that's gotta get all engineered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got the watershed in that area, that's gotta be all engineered for drainage and all that, so it's something that you just can't even.
Right. Did anybody else have any questions? for
Yeah.
her? Yeah.
I just want to say, I agree with Dan about the, maybe, I don't know if we have the opportunity to sit down and just kind of come up with a plan and just kind of something to look at to show us, like you said, the worst roads, roads that need to be, something that we can maybe able to do something else on, but I guess in the end, it all comes down to money, so
Right.
unfortunately, but, yeah, I like the idea about doing that, just to kind of come up with a plan and seeing what roads, what the issues are with, certain roads.
Yeah, it's important. It definitely is. It's what, kind of we decide when we do have funding for roads, we then decide which roads would then get paved. Sure, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, based on what Gary had said, on the example that he's learning from Exeter, it's possible if it's 1/3 the price for some of the approaches where that's applicable to those roads, where they don't need to be repaved right from the ground up. You could do 3 areas for the price of one. So it'd be great to get your insight on that, and
Yep.
how we could spread that out.
And this, I've already at a few places, but you don't wanna get into doing a lot of that shimming, fixing underneath, you kinda just wanna find a good road that's real good shape, maybe start to get the cracks, but you're gonna have to, because we got away from cracks and so on, that's so expensive, that's just another item in there. But we gotta start catching some of them, we gotta plan down the road, because we got some good roads that are still in good shape, but they're starting to go a
Yeah.
little bit, and it's like, it's what happens, you just keep going, don't go back to them, you just keep going for them worst roads. Next thing you know, start over again, the whole program.
I think
It's tough, but
it
it's
is.
expensive, it's hard to please people. I feel bad, like I said before, it's like, people ask me, I know, and I hate to say it, but you just got a spot about 3 feet wide and 8 feet long, you got people that are.
Mhm.
And then you could go around, but obviously, hot mix. You can do that, you only can do so much of that, our budget ain't set up for that either, I think what's 15,000 for asphalt product? As much coal patch we go through here. It's,
So do we need to increase that budget line item to cover it?
are we close on that, Daniel? I think
It's
we're,
16, you're at 11 now.
Okay.
Already used 11,100.
yeah, I think that's what it is, between,
It was 15 last year.
Yeah,
We've got to
15.
raise it up 1,000 to 16 this year.
Let
We've
me-
already used 11.
okay, all right. So that also, when we can hit those spots, do that, clean that out, saw it, and hop and. I think that's the best way to do that for them small spots where you don't have to do the whole road.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to do that in the past. It's like Mill Lane over there, we were gonna overlay that, but last year being 4 roads getting paved, and that's why I think things were a little slow, but too, for us, everybody was on them projects, it was 4 roads and everybody was, back, filling the back parts and everything, doing that, getting cutting, the stuff we could cut. doing the edges of the road, and then it was just busy paving, and they got done backing up the berms and that whole boom wall stuff.
Yeah. So sorry, we are on a time crunch. So does anybody else have any questions for Gary?
I have
One more question, go for it.
So capital improvement plan, it looks like we're gonna allocate $230,000 for a new street sweeper.
Yes, okay, I just want to make sure.
Is the current street sweeper in a state of disrepair? Does it still work?
It works. We were on, I think it was 5, I don't know how we call that. It was 5-year lease, so we just got it, 5 years. And we're on a, what, 6 years now? Maybe going on 7. We weren't getting a buyback we wanted, but it's getting that time. Nickel and dime belt, gonna have to reshim it. A few other issues we had with it, and we were beating all that problem before. We were staying away from that.
You made repairs to the sweeper already?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
What's that,
No,
what year is it? Like at 18,
17 or 18.
17 or 18?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they typically 6 to 8 years probably.
And nothing's cheap to get fixed on it.
Well,
I
it
know.
looks like on this item, we have enough right now in prior years funding for a street sweeper. And then we're putting away funding for part of a truck for, well, actually, that says fiscal year 25. Because right now, prior year's funding is at 304,694. When the street sweeper estimate is at 225. But that's the information that we were provided. I don't know,
think
prices
it's the
have
same
since
thing,
gone up.
okay, but yeah, it's right above, yep.
Yeah. Yep, boom, there we go. So that was an item that I had noted too, Dan, just to question it is, you know,
I
it's
think-
enough this year, but
I think-
yeah, but is it gonna be enough in future years? Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
I'm looking at the list and there is a 230,000
Backhoe.
for backhoe.
Right.
Yeah, and that's, so I think that's what the 230.
Right,
For
that's
this
right,
year.
that it'll go towards, the rest of the items. It says truck number 1, 310. Awesome. That's right. So does anybody else have any questions for Gary? We got like 12 minutes to kind of wrap this up. We do have a public hearing, so we're gonna be ending this budget workshop on time.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you,
Thanks,
Gary.
Oh, you're
Doing
welcome.
a good job out there.
Thanks.
All right, so I'm just gonna direct us back to the council materials, as we're able to get the updated items after our discussions in the last workshop. We have a few really minor changes in this workshop, just a couple from chief and animal control, which I guess is from chief as well. At the end, we were given a couple options. Option A, from the town. I went right into option A. Was really what to do with the fund balance. And we can bring some of that to the road construction, bringing the total to 524,293, which may pay for a road. Or we have option B, which would be to lower the tax rate to 1451. We'll have a little bit to still assign to the roads. So I think what we need to do with our last few minutes is determine the direction that the council would want to go forward. I just want to say when it comes to building a budget and selecting the roads, that I don't think that we should select the roads at this point. Just because we don't know what will happen in the next couple months. We don't know if a major flood will come through and destroy a road. And then we built this budget with the promise of a specific road, and then something happened that something else needed to take precedence or take the importance away. So I want to fund the roads. I just think that we need to figure out how much and then what we do with that amount strategically, whether it's fixing certain portions or full roads.
I don't think anyone's suggesting a specific road.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
But we all asked Gary to provide us with
Right.
his input on the different options for what we can do.
Something.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, what is everybody's appetite for A or B? Sure, go ahead, Mark.
I just have a question about option B, Danielle, I want to make sure I understand it. I think President Wilcox just talked about it, but so under option B, even after lowering the mill rate to 1451, we would still have unassigned fund balance to be allocated other places?
Yes, Yeah, just,
So we
it'll
would,
leave 153.
okay. All right. Or so I guess option C would be if you took all of it and lowered the mill rate, you could lower it even more.
Yeah.
No, I get it. If you lower it, it's gonna go back,
Yeah.
it's gonna go back up again inevitably, and I get it. I just want to make sure I'm understanding
Yeah.
what the, what the possibilities are. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have thoughts they want to share on this and our options?
I just have a
Sure,
request
go ahead.
for the public hearing. You have a really nice like summary table at the very end that breaks us down. Are you able to just provide us with these option A, B, and then Mark's option C? So it's very clear to
Yeah,
to us and the
let's do that.
residents.
Yep.
What our options are. I think we have an opportunity here where we're gonna do, I think, some good things for the town where we can. We're increasing staff salaries because we're underpaid, so we're gonna offer the same level of service we always have. We're gonna value our employees. We're going to provide money into our capital improvement funds and infrastructure, so we can give our residents better infrastructure. And we have the potential to save money too. I think that's a really good job from this council. I mean, just today, we dropped $27,000 from what we had before. I think we dropped $26,000 from the budget in the previous workshop, so we've reduced, I don't know, over $50,000 and
Mo-
plus more.
Sorry, more than that, because
More
the
than-
capital improvement from the Conservation Commission.
Right,
Yeah.
$157,000. So we're at over $200,000 we dropped from the initial budget. And on top of that, we added a grant writer position in consolidated community service and recreation. Or health services director, whatever we would call it.
Yeah, so I was trying to get an appetite for option A or option B, so we can have a prepared budget to present at that public hearing. So that's what I was kind of getting an appetite for, so we can pick one or the other, so it can be publicly available for the public hearing, knowing that this is a fluid working process, and we could change it if we want, up until we finalize it after the second public hearing. Does anybody have any thoughts on what they want to do for the options here?
You're requesting a motion?
Well, I think she's requesting feedback.
Or a motion, if you want to be quick and to the point, I'll take a motion. I mean, if you want to make go ahead,
I
Jeff.
was just gonna say, I mean, I ran on obviously lowering taxes for everybody, so I mean, I would. And might I like what Mark said about C, but I think like his last comment was it's gonna go back up, so, but I mean. I would just go with B. That would be my preference. I think we're heading in a good direction to show them that we can lower taxes while, also doing something with the extra. So.
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
And I know it, I'm sure it's in here somewhere, I just can't remember what. So if we go with option B and we put 212,000, we put 153,000 into the paving. In addition to lowering the mill rate.
Then it'll just be 200,000. So it's not really enough to pay.
Right,
So,
You would have to do it again next year.
right, so we would be, so what would the balance in the paving, that capital improvement paving be if we did option B? And we had the amount we put in last time from which I thought was a six-figure number.
So it'll be 311,333.
Okay.
with option B.
So we have,
What would be in it?
we have a little over $300,000 in the paving capital projects.
That's what-
Yep, okay.
So in 2 years, if we are able to do this again next year, we'll have a decent amount of money in that fund.
Mhm.
You just gotta survive for a year.
Right, and as Gary said, if through research, he comes up with some lower cost alternatives, we might be able to do, something this year that's not, not $500,000, but we'll see, but at least I agree, it gets us a good start, a healthy start. And I think it's impressive that we're talking about trying to do a major project like this without bonding it.
Yeah.
Doing it,
For sure.
so may not be every year, but to the extent we can fund them from our own budget, that's obviously more cost effective.
Sure, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, and I don't know if we have time for this now, but I know we just brought up that Heritage Trail piece, and I know it was 226, 196 originally, and then you said we reduced it by 157 and change. So I think, does that leave 69,000 and change?
It's 42,500.
Okay, so I'm looking at the numbers, so 42,550,
550,
yep.
That's-
And what is that 42,550 for?
That is the match for the grasslands, part of the grant that we received. Or
So-
received.
In order to receive the grant, we have to
We
pay
have
that
to have a
match.
match.
I
yeah,
understand.
That's.
Right, so we've reduced that as much as we can.
Right.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
All right, so it seems like there's more of an appetite for option B. What are your thoughts on that, Jim?
Yes.
Okay, so let's put it into a little bit of a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion
Thank you.
to request the finance director to assemble a budget based off of the discussions tonight, the additional reductions submitted by the chief, and including option B, which at least right now, based on the numbers they had previously, reduces the tax rate to 14.51, 14.7 per thousand. And I think that's it.
All right, second it. So we have our
And put the.
motion and our second now discussion. Go for it, Mark.
I think the motion should include putting the remainder from the fund balance into the paving.
I'll accept that amendment.
All right. Got a motion, we got a second. We'll go for a roll call vote. Counselor Dinsmore,
Yes.
Madnick,
Yes.
Paul Machado.
Yes.
Reynolds
Yes.
and Wilcox, yes. Awesome. Before we log off, because we're almost at 6 PM, anybody watching on Zoom, as a reminder, you will need to log off and go on to the new meeting code for the 6 PM meeting on that agenda. That's all. We'll be tuning off and tuning back in a second. We need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. All right, guys, fill your water.